I'm sure you'll be glad to know that I do not plan to be very long this morning from this video. Because what we have just done in itself, I think, represents a very good sermon. With the church gathered and scattered, remembers with thanksgiving those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And so words cannot really add to that. That in itself, I think, is enough. But today for us takes on greater poignancy when we remember just 2 weeks ago or so, right in our very neighborhood, right here in Canada, 2 of our soldiers died tragically. A reminder of war and evil that still pervades the world. So we thank God for all who have served, all those who faced death and returned. They also, we must remember and thank them. Those who sent their sons and husbands and brothers and nephews and uncles to the front lines, and today still do that. We cannot forget them because their lives are anxious, not knowing if tomorrow they will get that knock on the door and the officer come to tell them the sad news. So we are thankful for all those who have given themselves or give their children for our freedoms. The sad thing is that war persists. War is evil. War is dangerous. Where 2 powerful nations come together using the latest of artillery and technology to fight each other with the sole intention of destroying the other. In war, who wins? No one wins really. In war, unlike a basketball or hockey game, when the buzzer goes for the end, the last minute, no one says, good game, old chap, see you next week. It's not that kind of game. It's dangerous. In war, very often, Christian values go out the window. Who speaks of turn the other cheek? Who speaks of love your neighbor as yourself? Who speaks of forgive? Who speaks in those terms when the war is called? In war, you must take a side, usually. If your nation is at war, we tend to take our nation's side. If you do not, you are not faithful to your nation, not a patriot, it's treason. You must take a side. Sometimes there are those who have a conscience and stand up nonetheless and speak out against it. And they are in the minority. That's the reality of war. Jesus himself hardly ever spoke of war. In fact, there's only one place in the Gospels where Jesus spoke of war. And in that instance, it was as an illustration about going to war and not counting the cost. He referred to a kind of battle at the end of his life before Pilate when he said he could have called angels to fight. But in a real sense, Jesus never really spoke of war. He never preached to inform national policy. He always spoke about personal morality. How you as an individual are called to live. How I am called to live. And for that reason, when I think of war and my being unable to make a difference really, I think of myself as to how I can, as an individual, live out my desire for peace. That's what we're called to do. what is our desire for peace? How do we live out that desire for peace? By first, as the prayer said earlier, peace in myself. I cannot offer peace to other persons. I will be using empty words when I pray for peace, when I myself am not at peace with myself. We've got to find a way to find peace with ourselves. And then how we relate to the other person, the other individual, the other group, the other family. How we enable them to experience the peace of God that is beyond all human understanding. That's how we wage the war against evil, by engaging peace with other persons. Peace ought to be in the church, if no place else. I was away for the past few days attending my seminary's alumni gathering, and I had registered to go to a course around ministry and mission for 2 days. But in September, we got a call that is cancelled because there was no peace in the seminary. The dean and the staff, faculty, were at war, fighting against each other because of the perceptions that the dean was not one who listens and cares and shares. He's on his own agenda. And so the staff said to the dean and the board, we cannot work with him with that attitude. The things he says about gays and blacks and Chinese and women and other things as well, we cannot work with him in that context. They told the board that. The board said, thank you for having resigned as faculty. They complained to the board thought they and deemed them resigned. And so there was the impasse. And so whereas we had planned to go to discuss mission and ministry as church to the world, we spent our time beginning to engage a process of reconciliation. How we can make peace in the seminary that I spent 2 years of my life. We harbor hurt and hate as individuals, and therefore it's hard to speak of peace. I wonder how many of us have gotten past the hurt and the pain that was experienced here over the years, some years back. I'm talking about, there was a painful time here. How many have gotten past the hurt and the hate and the anger? Or is it still there, seething below the surface? If we are to really be a peacemaking community, we must work even at that level as well. Important. So, I wouldn't go on. My point is that war is there. War is waged when nations feel aggrieved or feel provoked and they find reason to go into war. Because the claim is we are defending our freedoms. But we can, in our way, pursue peace at the level of community. That's important. And today, 25 years ago, the Berlin Wall came down. And a wall that was put there to create the Cold War, if you will. Mistrust, sabotage, all that we can think about in that time. That wall came down and opened the world to remove the boundaries that we create between ourselves as a symbol of what we are called to do. My friends, I call upon us to pray for peace, surely, in the world. But let it begin with me. Let it begin in my family. Let it begin in my church. Let it begin with me. May God grant us the peace that is beyond all human understanding. And keep your hearts and minds in the one Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.